Can you tell us about some of the consequences? Oh, God.
It's fine.
If you don't mind.
I like that bit.
Hi, morning. Nice to meet you.
My name is Amatula. I'm a Doncaster Youth Council member representing Council Academy.
Hi, Amatula. I'm Jane Forrest. I'm a Chief Inspector in South Yorkshire Police and I am in charge of Doncaster Neighbourhoods. Nice to meet you.
Are you a morning person or a night owl?
Definitely a night owl. Don't like mornings, never have done.
Would you rather be poor doing the job you love or rich doing the job you hate?
Poor doing a job you love. If you love your job, you never do a day's work, is my view.
Why did you join the police?
That's testing my memory now. It was a few years ago. I'd always wanted to be a police officer right from being a little girl. And I think it was basically the feeling of wanting to help others.
Do you think the police have a certain perception of young people in Doncaster?
I think the police have a perception of young people the world over. But certainly in Doncaster, our vision is to give them a voice and actually recognise that they come from a very unique community and have their own unique needs.
Do you think young people have a certain perception of the police?
Yes, I think they do. I think it's different now to what it was a few years ago in terms of we were seen as much more a position of authority, probably when I was young, whereas now I think we've got a much more better engagement approach with young people. So I think we're more approachable, more accessible, and hopefully seen as that beacon of help for people and not something to be feared.
Can you tell us about some of the legal consequences of recreational drug use?
So if I give you an example, Amatula, if you applied for a job and somebody else applied for a job, but you had a conviction for drug possession and they didn't, you have to ask yourself as an employer, who are they going to go with? And it's going to be the other one. And lots of professions and posts require background checks now more than ever before. So it's about not really about thinking for today, but sort of like the longer term planning and what that criminal record might mean for you in the future.
Do the consequences differ depending on the drugs used and the age of the person using them?
Yes, it does. First of all, drugs are classified differently in terms of A, B and C, A being the worst. So the intervention is more severe for Class A drugs. And secondly, your age impacts on what might happen to you in terms of the criminal justice system. So if you're under 10, you are called what's below the age of criminal responsibility. But then sort of between 10 and 17, you are a juvenile. So it is more about, the criminal justice system is more about not criminalising young people, but more saying what's the reasons why they've taken drugs, and how can we prevent them happening again.
Young people have expressed a worry about drugs in our recent survey. Do you think drugs affect a lot of young people in Doncaster?
I think it affects some young people. Sometimes I think it can be the perception of drugs more than the actuality of drugs that affects them, which is where it's up to us to step in terms of education.
How have you seen the drugs impact the lives of young people in Doncaster?
Drugs alters your mind, so for me it can impact on relationships, probably at a point in your life when relationships are really important to you as you become a young adult. It can affect your schoolwork, so as I've mentioned earlier, that can go on to affect your grades, which can affect your future opportunities in terms of higher education and ultimately employment.
What are the police doing to support young people involved in drug use?
I think the main thing is to understand why. What's the reason, so that we can prevent that from happening again. And the only way you can understand why is to listen to that young person and to hear their story. What is the journey that took them to the point where they took some drugs? And how do we break that cycle? Instead of watching it go round and round, how do we break that?
What should a young person do who is worried about drugs?
Talk to somebody. That's the main thing. Find somebody you trust, whether that be a friend, a teacher, a parent, PCSO in the community, or the police, or Crime Stoppers. Just if they're worried about it, then share it and actually let us have that information in a way that's comfortable with the way that they share it, so that we can do something about removing those drugs. And then in terms of just from a legal point of view, if you find drugs in the street, then you hand them in.
Doncaster has the ambition to become the most child-friendly borough in the country. How can you assure young people that the police are tackling problems around drug use to make sure people feel safer in Doncaster?
That's a really good question. So, I police 2 plans and strategies, which I won't bore you with the details of those, but just really for you to know that we have a high presence in schools. We're developing that presence further so that schools will have a dedicated young persons officer, and really get into the community through the youth services and through partner agencies, and really give young people a voice. For me, it would be a reminder that we are an organisation made up of people that care very much about young people, and we're here to be spoken to engage with, and there's help out there if you need it. If you feel that you are going down the route that might involve drugs in your life, there's plenty of things that you can do to prevent that.
On behalf of the Youth Council, thank you very much for doing this interview with me, Jane.
Thank you for having me. I've enjoyed it. Thank you.